today. We are speaking with Jacob George. Jacob is the founder of Unity Rising, a youth-led organization working to build the power of young, working-class people through grassroots organizing, voter registration, and bold, simple messaging. Jacob is a current ASU student where he is pursuing a degree in political science and also a current board member in the Balsz Elementary School District where he was elected in 2024. Balsz is just our neighbor. I was on the Creighton School District, so Balsz was the district just to the south of us. So I'm so happy to see you there. He is also the executive director for an organization, Unity Rising, with the goal to uplift working class perspectives among Democratic candidates and leaders. Jacob, I know that there's probably more to your bio. So if I missed any blanks, please fill in the blanks.
No, I think you covered it almost. I think that's perfect. I'm excited to present. Is it okay if I share now?
Absolutely. Okay. So I'm going to, like I said, monitor the chat and you take it away, Jacob.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Um, it's not letting me share by chance. Is there a... Oh, there we go. Okay.
There we go. Perfect. Okay.
Share screen. Perfect. All right. So thank you so much for allowing me to be here, and I'm so excited. I've known Jeannie for a couple years now, and she's been amazing. So thank you so much, Jeannie, for allowing me to come on and speak with Secular. Um, can everyone see my presentation? Perfect. All righty. So I'm gonna kind of start with my story, kind of how I'm here, how I got involved. It actually, I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. I actually grew up Mormon, and I know everyone's dying to know. Yes, I am a recovering Mormon. So I'm no longer I'm no longer Mormon. We moved out here around 10 to 15, or no, it was like to me 12 years ago now, to the west side where I grew up in Goodyear, Arizona, and that's where I went to school. I started very young, kind of getting involved in eighth grade. I was marching with my teachers during the Red for Ed movement. As you can kind of see in the photo in the bottom there, it's just little Jacob with his teachers outside every day of school protesting. And that was something that kind of really kind of ignited me and got me started and got my passion going. After that, I went to high school and I started running for every club that there was that I probably had no business in. Some of them from the Key Club to the Robotics Club, which I definitely did not have any business being president of Robotics Club. But my most, awesome club, I would say, is the Gay Straight Alliance. During sophomore year, I ran for president and I won that. When I was actually in a health class, one of the teachers asked us to write, what would you do if you got a girl pregnant? And I said, well, I wouldn't get a girl pregnant because I'm gay. And the teacher actually asked me to write it as if I was straight. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And so what I did is I joined forces with Lambda Legal, and there was a law in the books in Arizona called the No Promo Homo Law. So it was a law enacted in 1992 that basically said that you can't even mention or even talk about, being a part of that lifestyle, I think is the words that they use. So it was like our version of the Don't Say Gay bill. And so we filed lawsuits against the state of Arizona. I was one of the unidentified plaintiffs. I was like 14, maybe 15, and we sued the state of Arizona, and then it was later repealed in 2019. So I was very excited about that win, and I think that's kind of where I got my I guess my itch for kind of politics and getting into this field and helping out as much as I can. But I did that all under my parents' nose. They didn't know nothing. They didn't know I was even president of the GSA, as coming from a Mormon family. So in senior year, I told them I came out as gay, and they kicked me out of the house, and I had to move all the way to Phoenix, Arizona, or to Phoenix, where I would drive to Goodyear every day for school and work. Um, I would work as at a Starbucks in the morning from around 4 at 4 a.m. and then I would go to school And then I would work at an Italian restaurant after school, and then I would go home and do it all over again. And so that's kind of where I got my, thing for hard work. But I really relied heavily on my teachers and my educators to really get me through high school, but then also to get me grants and scholarships to attend ASU where I'm currently at. And I've only got one more semester left. I'm so excited for it to be over with. And so that's kind of why I decided to run for school board in my local area where I lived, is to really give back to our educators and our teachers that fought so hard for me all my life. And that's kind of why I decided to run for school board. I, didn't know what I was doing in the beginning at all when I decided to do it. I don't think anyone really does. But it was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made. I've absolutely enjoyed being on the board for the last year. And we've had so many great new, wins to this. It was just an amazing. It's been such an amazing experience, and that's kind of what led me into more activism work. I worked for Tim Stringham. I ran his CAIM, who ran for county recorder. I worked for the Human Rights Campaign, and then after that last horrible election, we decided to start Unity Rising after we saw everything that was going on with Turning Point. So I think Jeannie did a good explanation of our mission. We're, an organization that's working to build that power of young working class people and hopefully kind of bring them back to the progressive coalition. We're empowering students on college and high school campuses to challenge far-right extremist narratives, to mobilize their communities, and just to become the next generation of progressives who are going to work for justice and democracy and an economy that's going to work for everyone. So why it matters, uh, the GOP youth actually has support has surged. And ever since 2008, Democrats have consistently gotten around 60% of the vote during presidential elections. This year was very worrisome. We were down to 51%. We kind of attribute that to Turning Point, and how they are winning the long game, which we're going to get into, kind of about Turning Point. So, what is Turning Point? First, I just want to say, obviously, I condone any political violence, but I will not martyr this man. He was a horrible man, said, racist things. He wouldn't get on a plane if the pilot was black because it was probably a DEI hire. Said horrible things about women, in the workplace. So I'm not going to martyr him, but I do condone political violence. Turning Point was founded in 2012 by Charlie Kirk and Bill Montgomery. And yes, that is Arizona's Bill Montgomery. They have as of their website, we actually believe they have more chapters, especially with all the news that just happened. They have over 3,500 high school chapters across the country. They're also in other countries now. So they are in Australia and the UK. So this isn't just an American thing that they're trying to do. They're trying to kind of take this global and spread their hate and their republic and their far right extremist narratives. Last year alone, just from the sides that we can see, they brought in $85 million in revenue, and they're divided into four separate legal entities. So they have their C3, their C4, their endowment, and then they have a lot of PACs as well that they are involved in. So we actually think they brought in closer to $115 million with everything. But from the sides that we can see, it's 85. You guys probably already know this now. They promote far-right propaganda on campuses from high school all the way to college. And I would consider them a hate group. But they are very effective, and we have to give them credit for that. They do year-round organizing, not just during elections. So this is something where I kind of, get very upset with Democrats. We usually tend to scale down during election or during office times when we should be scaling up, building those resources and connecting with people, not just when we want them to vote for us. So they also hire locally. Something that, Democrats also did not do too well last time around is we brought in people from Pennsylvania to tell Arizona voters what they should be concerned about. And that's just not very an effective organizing approach. It has to be personal, it has to be relational, and it has to come from your neighbor. And so that's something that they do very well. So TPUSA actually has an app that anyone can download and they can start canvassing their neighborhood right now. You don't need a list number, you don't need anything. You can just go on there and start canvassing your neighborhood. You don't have to go to an LD meeting. So they are ahead of us in technology as well. They also provide activism kits for all of their students and all of their chapters with different types of stickers, signage, voter registration forms, all that stuff to really kind of get them into that right-wing pipeline. And they also make it fun. They make it fun, so they blend the politics with the culture and outrage, and that's kind of how they're getting the students in. So at first, it's not initially all about politics. It's about, coming to a fun club at school, and then we're going to indoctrinate you. So it's very, what's that word? Cult-like. So that's kind of what we've been seeing from them. But that being said, now for some good news. We do have some Unity Rising chapters, and this is what we're kind of our one of our main goals is actually launching these chapters to go into the high schools. Turning Point's already given us the blueprint, right? All we have to do is find a student, and then we have to get a teacher, and then we have a chapter at that school. So these are some of the schools that we're actually currently establishing or have already established chapters in. Red Mountain in Mesa, Shadow Ridge in Surprise, Millennium in Litchfield Park, Cesar Chavez, Phoenix, Brophy, Phoenix, ASA, Phoenix, Mountain Ridge, in Glendale, and then Corona and Tempe. We're working very hard on trying to get some Scottsdale ones. So if you know anyone in Scottsdale or Tucson, we need some in Tucson as well. We need some all over around the state. Please tell them to go to our website and start a chapter, and we'll walk them through the whole process. Our goal would be to have 25 by the end of the year, at least committed. So that is something that we're kind of hoping for. Now, each chapter, we provide up to $1,000 a year basically in support. So what that means is that each chapter also gets a mobilization kit from us. So we send them signs, stickers, voter registration forms, all of that stuff, just like what Turning Point is doing, tablecloths. So when they want to do things like that, they can have that as well. We're also focused on civic engagement, voter reg, and community action. So what I mean by that is each chapter has to do at least 2 voter registration drives per school year. And they also have to do a community service project of their choice. So that could be, going out and cleaning up the school, going to a soup kitchen, doing things like that. The reason why is because it's more of that relational organizing, which we want people to see. And it's also kind of putting our money where our mouth is, saying that we're trying to help out the community and that progressives are actually doing that. Okay. So our focus in 25, raise more seed funding as everyone is right now. So I know you guys are all, being inundated with requests for money. And so that's one of our major things this year as well. Digital platform growth through social media, which I'll kind of talk more about as well. Again, developing that 25 chapters. We're actually having a meeting right after this one about social media advertisements for one for funding, but also two to actually target areas that we're trying to get chapters in and getting some of these students to sign up and start a chapter online. Our Turning Point tracker, which we do send out an email if you are a member with all of the updates that Turning Point is doing. We kind of send those out to our members of, hey, this is what Turning Point's doing. And then voter registration. Voter registration is a big one. In Arizona, we have a 330,000 gap between Republicans and Democrats. So the Republicans are leading. In the county, it's around 200,000. So we have a lot of ground to make up, and we have to get out there. And I'm going to tell a little fun voter registration story kind of at the end as well. So our media strategy, you can't be afraid to throw punches. Democrats were kind of known for being nice, and that's lovely. But in order to get, traction on social media, you have to be a little out there, and you can't be afraid to throw those punches because that's what the algorithm kind of watches and kind of gives sense to people. So pop culture meets politics without the cringe. The goal is to reach young people where they are at. You can't be preachy, you can't be boring, you have to keep it simple. You have a couple seconds for someone to glance at it and then scroll on by. So we do our burn book every Wednesday. If you haven't ever checked it out, please go to our social medias, just at Unity Rising USA. And basically, that week we kind of talk about a Republican. If you don't know what the burn book is, it's from a movie called Mean Girls, and it's a funny movie if you've never seen Mean Girls. But this is Pete Hegseth, for example. We call him the Secretary of Oversharing, leaks war plans, all of that stuff. So we have some good ones on there to check out if you haven't checked those out yet. So this is a long-term, sustainable organization that we're building. This is not going to be a one-issue race. So right now we're an Arizona pack. So the reason why we did that is because it's easy to start a pack. There's not much legal requirements that you need, and you can start it almost immediately. And so that kind of saves money on the front end. If we had a C3, we would have had to pay lawyers and all that stuff to establish that. Our goal is to do a federal pack next year. We have some interest in some other states that we're hoping to expand to. Like we have some interest in New Mexico, New York, Massachusetts, and California. And then we're hoping to do a C3 or get the process with a C3 next year that we can move our chapters over to a C3 like Turning Point does. And then also a C4. Those just take a long time to get approved for that. So we're hoping to have that process started sometime mid next year and then hopefully be approved by 2028. So some current updates. We, as many of you maybe as know, Deer Valley had their override, and we sent out 15,000 text messages to even Republicans, basically kind of tailored text messages with teachers on the call, doing these text messages as well, asking them to vote for this budget increase and the override. And it passed, squeaked by, barely within like a little over 1,000 votes. And out of that 15,000, we had 3,000 people actually say or like click on the link to find a polling location near them. And so we were very happy with all the work that everyone did there. We also did have some legal complaints back in July, actually, against Turning Point for violating the Arizona dark money law, which is actually going through the legal system right now. And they're trying to say it's unconstitutional. This law that Arizona voters passed in 2022 overwhelmingly, which basically just says you have to disclose your top three biggest contributors when you spend on a media buy of over 500,000, which I think is pretty reasonable. I think voters should know who's paying for that. And Turning Point wasted $500,000 on Andy Biggs, and they did not disclose their top three biggest contributors. And so we've just been kind of in limbo with the system right now, waiting on what the court's going to say of whether or not this dark money law violates the Arizona Constitution. I did have a reporter reach out it was about a month ago now, and she basically just said, well, Turning Point doesn't think that they should have to disclose their top three biggest contributors because these activists are going to go after them. And then she was like, are you planning on going after them? And I was like, no. And then she's like, are you an activist? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I vote, so I think that would make me an activist, right? And then she's like, yeah, I think so. By the term of activism, I think that would make you an activist. And I was like, yeah. So I was like, Arizonans should just be able to know who's funding these all this money that's being spent in politics. And so Turning Point's trying to fight that tooth and nail. Uh, in the right-hand corner, we have our chapter in Red Mountain in Mesa, which is Far East Mesa, and they did voter registration during lunch, and they got over 100 people registered to vote in 2 hours. And with that, That being said, 90 were actually eligible to register to vote. And then out of that 90, we had 60 register as Democrat, 30 register as independent, and 10 register as Republican. The reason why this was so effective is because since we're a PAC, we can actually tell them to register, or we can be more partisan in our voter registration. So we can say things like, hey, we have, 300, there's a 300,000 gap between Dems and ours, and will you help us close that gap? So we can be a little bit more partisan than a C3 could doing voter registration. And so that's something that we're very proud of them for, and that could make a huge difference in areas like Mesa. We were also with Congresswoman Yasmin Ansari, talking about their government shutdown that the Republicans did, and the impacts that this is going to cause, well, with their CR as well, to education specifically and hospitals. It's going to be a huge problem. So that's kind of all I have right now. I'm Obviously, if you want to donate, please do. I'm not going to say no. Um, but that is all I have. So I'm ready for questions. I can see the chat has a lot. So um, hopefully there's some good.
Okay. Let me get over it. Well, most of it is there's a lot of kudos up in here. Yep. Ian says, Jacob, I've worked with that dude. This is so dope. That's coming from Ian. Um, let's see. Thank you. I apologize for my freezing cold house. Let's see. There's a lot of hellos. Janie Heydrich was in here saying, so
I
glad to
love
see
Jane.
you here. Yeah, she's a champion as well. Ian is letting everybody know next Friday, spend the time that you would have spent here standing in front of a Home Depot or Target, encouraging people to stop shopping there until Home Depot stops
Hmm.
cooperating with ICE and Target. Okay.
Yep.
Let's see. There's all kinds of stuff. I said I love a good recovering Mormon. And I actually have a question from that because that's the
Yeah.
part that, I immediately, thought about is you, this person that I've known now for a few years. I didn't realize that you were kicked out of your home. And so I'm
Mhm.
sorry that that happened to you, and that's awful. And I'm sorry that you were like being forced to write an essay about somebody that you totally weren't. That's weird.
Yeah.
But may I ask, is it too personal? How is your relationship with your
No.
parents?
So it basically my mom's side. So my parents are divorced. So my dad's side is very Catholic, and actually more liberal. So they've always been fine with it. But they got divorced and we moved out here with my mom and she remarried. And so let's just say she believes that Tylenol causes autism. And so we have a difficult relationship, but it's a working relationship now, I would say. And it has gotten better. But she's still kind of down the pipeline a little more than I would like to see. Um, and so it is challenging sometimes, but I get along great with my father, so it's
I'm glad.
usually
Yeah,
the
I do.
opposite side, but yeah.
It's weird for me too because my mom was always like the Irish Catholic Democrat, right? And
Mhm.
then and like, outspoken. I always thought of her as a feminist. Now, if anybody were to call her that, she would be so angry about it. But my whole life, all she did was provide me of examples of being this is what a feminist looks like.
Right.
Now she's drunk the Kool-Aid, the orange Kool-Aid, and so have my sisters. And so it makes
Mhm.
it makes all the things hard because my parents are getting older as well. So it's
Exactly.
tough. So I feel for you, but I'm so glad that you're here in Arizona. And I know that like me, you've been able to probably establish a really amazing chosen family for yourself because
Mhm.
my favorite people in Arizona, we don't share any blood or anything else, but we share
Exactly.
everything else. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Okay, here's a question coming from Lee. Will Bill Montgomery recuse himself from any legal cases where Turning Point is involved that is brought to the Arizona Supreme Court?
I don't know, but I think he totally should. I mean, that would be a huge conflict of interest. Um,
Yeah.
he's horrible. I mean, he started this whole mess, so I hope so. And if he doesn't, or if we see anything like that, I will be sure to do some press releases and attack him publicly.
Good, good. I hope so. I mean, it seems like you've got a really good plan of action going forward and a strategic plan for your organization.
Mhm.
Lori says the anti-Kirk, thank goodness. We're glad to have you. Oh, Farrell said, how can I get on your Turning Point tracker list? So I don't know if Lindsay was able to drop a link there, but if you have that link available, if you could maybe drop that in, that would be great.
Yeah.
Um, Here's a question from James. Don't we kind of, I think this is more maybe tongue in cheek or rhetorical. Don't we kind of know don't we kind of know who the dark money comes from? I mean,
Yeah. They try to keep it hidden. They really do, and they can kind of do that in some of their in their financial reports. So it's
mhm,
not, with nonprofits, it gets a little bit more challenging because they don't really have to, disclose those publicly. And so it gets a little bit more challenging. With PACs, they're pretty clear on who it is from. But it's a little different with C4s.
mhm. Well, and I'm thinking too of, oh gosh. Who was oh shoot, I've lost it. I'll come back to it. I'll come back to it. But if so I don't know if somebody's dropped a link. Gosh, hold on, where the dark money came from. Oh, I remember. I was thinking of the organization LifeWise.
Mhm.
That's this Christian curriculum, and I highly recommend to. They did a really great summer series, the Secular Education Association regarding LifeWise. But it sounds like kind of similar. Is why I'm bringing it up, because they basically have this protection where they're able to get donations through a different way so that
Mhm.
those donors are shielded. I mean, that's the thing,
Yeah.
right? Some of these organizations, they have the money and the team of attorneys that it takes to be able
Oh yeah.
to protect themselves and their donors from this stuff. Like the loopholes that these folks are able to find, it's impressive. If it didn't make me so angry, I'd be very impressed, right? Okay, let's see. Okay, sometimes when I scroll. Okay, are you working with the Young Dems and Keep Arizona Blue to pool your resources and focus your energies? That comes from Doug.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good question. And we have worked very closely with the Young Democrats. We were the only org to endorse Claudia Klein, who is the current president of AZYD. And we've also been working with the Young Democrats of America as well. And so we've been very closely working with them. Um, Keep Arizona Blue, we have a monthly call that we're on with them, and so we do kind of work with them. I think Keep Arizona Blue is a little bit more focused on colleges right now. We're kind of focused on the high school level, and then we also need the college people as well. But we just saw people not really in the high school space, and Turning Point is getting them before they even enter college. So that's kind of where our focus is. But Keep Arizona Blue, yeah, we do work with them both, as well as the YDs.
Well, that's good because I mean, there are a lot of us that are in this nonprofit space, and so often I feel like, wherever I am, whether it's like, the education table, the
Mhm.
LGBTQ table, the repro table, we're all looking at the same people in our Zoom meetings. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I just it's hard to maintain that focus and to be able to accomplish things. And so I'm really glad that y'all are communicating in that way. I recently saw something in the news about how um parents, and I don't know what brought this up, but there are some parents who are trying to remove Turning Point USA's clubs
Right.
in their schools. I think I saw maybe at Chaparral or some other Scottsdale school.
It
And
was, yeah, it was
yeah.
in Scottsdale. It was Saguaro.
Okay. I just happened to see that pop up like on my Google News alert or whatever. I
Mhm.
didn't read the article, but do you happen to know what it is or who these folks are and what their
Yeah.
catalyst was for trying to get that removed?
So the way I understood it is that there was some bullying going on at the school from uh, different people that were actually in TPUSA. And so I think a lot of students have kind of had enough with it. And we've actually been trying to reach out to that school. And I've reached out to the Education Association president of Scottsdale, and he's going to try to help us get some people as well in that school district. But it basically sparked, it sparked a petition to kind of try to dissolve them. That being said, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. It is going to be extremely hard to dissolve them, especially with the First Amendment. The
Yeah.
schools districts do not want to touch that at all. And so I guess the only thing that you could really do is have those school districts take disciplinary action and say, hey, you can't be in a club if you're going to be bullying. And I guess you could try to dissolve it from within using behavioral, but it's going to be extremely, they're not going to dissolve the chapter because of that First Amendment, and the school district does not want to get into that. They're afraid of lawsuits, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to reach out to those students. So if anyone knows any students in Scottsdale that would be interested in starting a chapter, we would like to have an opposition to Turning Point or a counter to Turning Point at that school, so that children have another outlet that they can go to that's not Turning Points.
I know some people in Scottsdale, so I just want to write this down for myself for later. Because I also know people who have school-age children in Scottsdale.
Mhm.
Um, okay, Janet says, looks like there's a William Bill Montgomery who co-founded Turning Point with Charlie, but he died in 2020 due to COVID. Is Arizona's Bill Montgomery now involved? No doubt AZ Bill is a horrible person, but not sure about his relationship with Turning Point USA. Huh, it's
There,
good to know.
I think there's the Bill Montgomery. Yeah, I think he was the businessman that died, I think, in 2020. So
But
I
the other
think
Bill Montgomery is still involved with him?
I'm not, I'd have to do more research on that, but I
Okay.
don't think that's why I was like, I don't think that he was alive, that he was alive. So I don't know if there are relationships to the judge one. Uh,
Gotcha. Okay.
but I wouldn't also be surprised because that judge is also a little crazy.
Yeah, I think there was an effort by CEVB a while back to try to um get him ousted. Let's see. I think I saw something up here. Um, let's see. No, maybe not. Oh, Janie's up here saying that she'll match 2 monthly sponsorships of $80 for high school chapters. So thank you for your generosity, Janie. Um, let's see. The other question I had, okay, so I don't know if you're paying attention to what's happening in Peoria Unified School District the way I am, but just recently at a board meeting, the president of that district, of that school board, said that she's helping kids basically start Turning Point USA chapters. Have you investigated into that? Have you reached out to anybody on the board to see if they'd help you start a chapter? I mean, I think that would be an interesting commentary on her meddling in student-led, clubs when clearly those are supposed to be student-led. So have you gone in and investigated about that at all or checked into it?
Which school district did you say again?
So this is Peoria Unified, and you may not know
Hmm.
about this,
I
but
didn't know about this,
she has
actually.
promised. So I don't know. I think it could be fun for you to maybe reach out and
Yeah.
say, "Since she's promising to get other clubs started, that maybe she'd help you get a Unity Rising club started. Who knows? Maybe
I would
she
love to.
would."
Who was it again? I'm gonna text our person
Uh,
right now that does our research to
Her name
research
is
some
Heather
of
Rooks. Heather Rooks, she's the president in Peoria, and I don't think it was the most recent meeting. It was 2 or 3 meetings ago. It was definitely after
it.
the assassination of Charlie Kirk. She and another board member gave what could only be called, sermons about,
Hmm.
him, and they continue to bring him up. In fact, most recently, Janelle Bowles quoted Charlie Kirk by saying that everybody should have more babies, and that's basically the
Oh
reason
God.
why their override didn't pass in Peoria, is because people are not having kids and people are having abortions. So that's an interesting take on things too.
That's a very interesting take. I think people just are more worried about the economy and they just don't want to have kids in this political environment. And it's funny how they don't like to feed the children that they currently have, um, which is also an interesting take. You can't be pro-life in one sense and then disregard them every other time. So,
Okay.
but yeah, no, I'm gonna do some more research into that because that would be a interesting thing. And I know some. some people in Peoria through our ASPA ties. So I might be able to talk to some at the next meeting. So that would be good to know. So thank you. And I did do
Hmm.
some research on the Bill Montgomerys, and they're actually both tied. So yes,
Oh,
they
interesting.
both are tied to Turning Point.
Huh.
Um, one just really kind of co-founded it. That was the Bill Montgomery who died in 2020.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he was also the one that funded it. But the judge is also tied to Turning Point.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and a lot of these folks are. I was just thinking about individuals who either are current elected officials or former elected officials, like Justine Wadzak works for
Mhm.
Turning Point USA. Hannah Larrabee, who's in Fountain Hills. I'm not sure if she's still with them or not. Like these people are very well connected because of their affiliation with Turning Point USA. And I imagine, again, as a candidate, if you're working at Turning Point USA, I bet you have access to some donors with some very deep pockets. So
Yes,
that's
you do. And there's also
Mhm.
Austin Smith, who ran for state rep too, that faked all of
Oh,
his petition signatures.
yeah,
I think,
he was in the news recently for something, right?
yeah, he faked all of his petition signatures on some pages and like forged people's signatures. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's in jail now. He has a mugshot and
Ooh,
everything. And so he also worked for Turning Point. So, yeah,
yeah, they're sending their very best, aren't they?
they sure are.
Um, oh shoot, I had a question percolating there, and I see that Edna has her hand up, but if you want to throw it in the chat or in the Q&A, Edna, that would be great. Because this is a webinar format, so ideally that's how we get our questions. Um, so aside from Turning Point USA, you are there any other organizations in your mind that, that are targeting young people the same way that Turning Point USA is?
No, I can't think of anyone else that has done this type of work that Turning Point has done. And there's a lot of youth orgs out there, but I feel like none of them are really, this is gonna sound horrible. I feel like none of them are really doing anything across the country. I feel like we also, as Democrats, we kind of have a problem with um, asking for money, and that's where we've kind of gotten too focused on.
Mhm.
And then we don't actually do anything with it. We can just see that from the DNC level. There's a lot of that going on, I'm finding in these youth orgs, and I feel like a lot of the youth orgs are competing because they think it's more like a business in a sense, which Turning Point, does a great job and they're ran like a business, but I can't see anyone else that has done this level of work that Turning Point has done. From either the Republican side, I think Turning Point's the only one, and from certainly not the Democratic side at all. I know there's some group out there called Dream for America that also kind of does some stuff, but I don't think they're really more than anything than an online presence. So they do have a very good social media game, but that's kind of all there's really no one else out there doing the work that Turning Point
Mhm.
has done.
Well, and there have been really a lot of kind of public incidents where Turning Point USA has been involved,
Mm.
incidents involving like harassment. I'm thinking of, the teacher there was one at ASU, there
Mhm.
was another at GCU. Um,
Headland, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
have you been on the receiving end of that kind of harassment as somebody now who's very public facing and who is going against an organ? I mean, I've gotten things from people from Turning Point USA that are low key threatening, right? Like so have you been on the receiving end of that kind of stuff?
Surprisingly, no. I haven't heard anything I've actually had some people reach out that I've actually had good talks with from Turning Point. And so I know some people that actually voted for Bernie Sanders, and then went around and voted for Donald Trump, and now has kind of got stuck in that Turning Point pipeline. And so, I have actually had some conversations with people, like asking them why. Why did they do this? What made you switch from Bernie to this? And it really, I think, comes down to how Bernie talks is very kind of similar to kind of how Donald Trump talks. Now, Bernie's obviously a lot more educated, but they're kind of appealing to the same type of people. We're also losing a lot of men, I think, from the progressive side, and that's kind of what I found a lot is that the last person that was able to like, really garnish men in that way was Bernie Sanders on the Democratic side. I think it kind of always comes back to like the economy in the sense. And so I think I might have had a couple incidences on, social media, and I've had some turning point people follow me into meetings and try to uh, find some stuff that I was saying to use against me. I guess they were never able to find anything on me because they never released anything. But yeah, so I guess I have been followed a couple times, but nothing. I haven't gotten any threats or anything like that yet. So, and I hope it doesn't get to that point. But
So, okay, I know that you're focused on trying to help get to be able to build this movement with youth. But does that mean that you're also getting like with like the schools that you have, do you all then have like an action alert? Okay, guys,
Mhm.
like maybe if the schools are in that area in Fountain Hills, well,
Mhm.
I'm thinking because they're thinking right now about putting in a statue and
Mhm.
renaming like the community center after Charlie Kirk, or just recently on, I think it was Tuesday, they voted to get rid of public comment. So are you like mobilizing your, student activists with those kinds of alerts and saying, here's your menu of options to get involved, or how does that work?
No, yeah. So each chapter is in like an actual organization on their school. So they have a president, they have a secretary, they have a Unity Rising representative, treasurer, all of that stuff. And so they're an established club at that school and in that district. So what we don't want to do is we don't want to just have these chapters just kind of meeting and not doing anything. So we definitely are mobilizing them. Since we're still kind of new, we haven't done a whole bunch of mobilizing, but I know the Mesa one has done some mobilizing around Julie Spilsbury. So we did try to kind of get involved in that ways. We also sent out text messages, all of that stuff, and with the hopes of when election time comes, that they're actually out there and they're canvassing, they're knocking on doors, specifically young people that they're going to, and to hopefully have that peer-to-peer connection and hopefully kind of inspiring them to vote in that way. And so yeah, we're definitely going to be sending out different like alerts, but also the schools, like the president and the whole chapter themselves, they remain very vigilant on what's going on. And they have done an excellent job at just kind of taking some things into their own hands and just going out there and helping in any way they can. So they've been absolutely amazing, and I I'm just very impressed with the chapters.
Have you, is this right now mostly it looked like it was mostly in Maricopa County. Do you have a presence at all in Pima County or maybe Coconino or anywhere else?
So we have we're having a kind of a seminar with is it Julie? Uh, I'm forgetting her name. I think she's in Coconino County. She's the chair, I think.
Not sure.
I don't know her name, but she's bringing in teachers and stuff like that. And we're also working in Mojave. We don't have any chapters kind of developed there yet. We're working with Mojave right now to build Young Democrats of Mojave.
Mojave? Mojave of
Mojave.
all, what?
Yeah.
That's
So they want a young Democrat group out there. I'm like, we'll help you. We'll try to get you up and running. We'll get you social media. We'll help you in any way we can. We think that, we've kind of abandoned these rural areas, right? And we have to go out there, and we have to kind of show up in these places. If we don't, then we're not going to win. And even if we don't win out there, there's still maybe 5 or 10 votes that could go to Adrian Fontes or Katie Hobbs, or something like that. So we're really kind of trying to branch out of Maricopa. So right now we're only in Maricopa to answer your question, but we'll literally take anyone that wants to start a chapter. We'll take them,
uh-huh.
we'll get them ready. Doesn't matter where they're at in Arizona. We'll do it.
Well, and sometimes, where you have like somebody like a Pinky Fings Borelli who's representing you, right? Like you're gonna you're gonna want, you're gonna be even more motivated because this is the douchebag that just told me to put an aspirin between my knees. Like
Yeah,
I'm gonna get involved now, right?
right,
Or like
exactly.
I think about too, and unfortunately they're kind of defunct now, but
Mhm.
Mojave County, Bullhead City actually had
They used to be
uh
Democrats. They used to be a large Democratic. I mean,
yeah,
and there's
yeah.
still a lot
Well,
of Democrats there actually in Bullhead. You'd
and
be
they
surprised.
feel and they're afraid to say anything most of the
Mhm.
time, but like they a few years ago they actually had they had their second annual pride. They
Yeah.
had Bullhead City Pride, and it was teeny tiny, and it was a trans woman who was running the whole entire thing basically, and who even had found grant
Mhm.
funding for a freestanding pride center. And I know that recently they had to close it, but when the kids came to me at the table of all the 50 people that showed up to this pride event, they were just like, this group saved my life. I got
Yeah.
kicked out, this happened to me, and this trans woman saved us and gave us a place where we could just exist, right, and find
Yeah.
fellowship. So I can see, and I mean, like, and then I think about back when I ran in 2020, and even though back in those days LD 25 in East Mesa, it was still a very solidly red district that almost always, like, elected red people, right? But they were
Mhm.
fired up. That's what I love about when you get further away from like the solidly blue areas. Yeah, you might not like Payson right now. Payson, because
Oh
their
yeah.
representation is terrible. So like, so they're like, they're fired up, and at their meetings.
I've been to Payson's meetings a couple times. I was just down there earlier this month, and they are just amazing. And the group of women that are down there that are running everything, amazing, and they get to work. And they had so many people at their No Kings, protests, and I found it really interesting that it's mostly the women that are doing all the work in this field, and it's behind closed doors. They're the ones that are out there canvassing, doing all the work, and it's just really good to see. And Diane, who's the new chair,
Right?
Diane, that's the new chair of Mojave.
Oh,
She's just been amazing. She's really working very hard in that county to really flip it around.
that's great. I was just thinking, Diane Post is our legal director. And,
Mhm.
and when you said, "Oh, it's the women that do the work," I'm like, Diane's head is exploding right now. But she said, it's always the women doing the work. And it's true.
It
Like,
really is, yeah.
it's true. I mean, our board chair, he talks about it all the time, how he's very, very frequently the only men in these spaces, and it should not be that way, but that is how it is. And I gotta share this one because Whit, our former chair, he brought up something that Diane wrote to an attorney that was working for Turning Point USA. But she said on this at the end of her letter to them, oh gosh, there it is. I found that you are suspended from the practice of law, therefore you cannot properly be acting as counsel for Turning Point or anyone else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
It looks like we have a question from Doug. How can we
Thank
tap
you.
into the large donors? Well, if there's a George Soros out there that wants to send us money, I will gladly take any money. I don't know how to reach my local billionaire. And so I've been trying. So if anyone has any connections, please send them my way. But Turning Point has a lot of money. They get money from Home Depot. They get money from Pulte Homes. They get a lot of money from corporations that are interested. So we don't have that. We're very small, and they've really grown. But like I said earlier, that Bill Montgomery, the business side one, he had a lot of money, and he was able to connect Charlie Kirk with all those donors, and so we don't have that. But like I said, if anyone knows any billionaires, please do not do not gatekeep those from us.
Yeah, and with us too. We
Yeah,
need that full
please.
list, please. The full
Secular needs
list of
those
the
too. So.
billionaires. Yeah, thank you very much. Let's see. Joanne says we should recruit Julie Spilsbury to run as a Dem for state ledge or state senate in LD 10. The Republicans censored censored, but both her big time. I agree. The tricky part will be recruiting her to run as a Democrat, I would say. But I
Right.
would love to see more of these folks. I mean, I thought it was, and it's not even courageous. I'm sorry. Like, when what's his face died recently, the former vice president, and everybody was falling all over themselves to praise this
Yeah.
man. Like, no, like,
Ridiculous.
yeah, we don't need to do any of that. But this woman really, they did her dirty.
Yeah.
So I sure would like to see more people stand up when their own party actually comes after them and starts eating their face, right? Because it's going to
Yeah.
happen inevitably.
Exactly.
Um,
And Julie also was the real reason why they didn't want Julie was because she helped pass the Right to Marriage Act, I believe in 2022, which actually the Mormon Church actually supported too. I don't know if anyone knew that. But it basically just kind of defies marriage, and it also allows LGBTQ plus people to marry. And so it kind of just put it more into law and just kind of, made it a little bit more equal. And so Julie was actually very instrumental in connecting the Mormon Church with some LGBTQ plus orgs. And so that's why you saw all those signs that said Julie was for trans people and all that stuff. She wasn't specifically for trans people, she was just for people in general. And so um, it's very just kind of upsetting what Turning Point will do to go after LGBTQ plus people and even women. So
Yeah, they have
I'm
no
looking for
regard for the fallout from it either.
no.
I think they relish in it, and it was just the point, the peak of hypocrisy, when they started talking about the radical leftists being, the most violent and all that, and even going so far as removing their own studies about how it's the right wing that is the most violent. So I want to switch gears real quick because I'm sure you're not really, I mean, well, I don't know, in order to maybe grease the wheels on some things, do you reference your upbringing in the Mormon church?
Oh, absolutely.
Are
Absolutely.
you still connected to folks in the Mormon church?
Uh, I know some good people in the Mormon church, yeah. And I've actually seen kind of, even a shift in the Mormon church. Utah was actually one of the only states that actually shifted blue last time. So it means that they got more people voting for Democrat than Republican, as almost every other state actually had more Republicans. In 2012, Utah actually had a 70-point advantage overall. Now it's down to 30 points. So I've seen a lot of people in Utah actually shift to Democrats. Mormons are very actually involved with immigration and social services, and they care about the climate. So it's kind of, you're asking them to do this one thing, and then it's just going against their values and their morals. And so I have seen that there's actually been kind of this shift in people in the LDS church, kind of shifting towards a more kind of democratic mindset. The only reason why they're actually ever Republicans is because they endorsed Nixon. And that was the only time they ever did endorse a candidate. And so they endorsed Nixon, and everyone just kind of thought that meant that they continued to vote Republican. But it's one of the only states that actually shifted blue.
Yeah, it's interesting because, well, and I drop everything and read and watch every single expose that I can about cults. And
Mhm.
I apologize to anybody, but I mean, I do see like LDS Church, especially after watching the most recent docuseries called Surviving Mormonism.
Yeah.
I don't know if you watch that. I'm also, full disclosure, like a big Bravo fan and Real Housewives and
Oh, I
Salt
love.
Lake. I know we could probably talk about that, but like, so that's how my daughter got me to start watching The Real Housewives because I was like, I'm not
Have
going to
you
watch that. You never. And
have
she was like, Salt Lake City, mom, there's spiritual abuse. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm
yeah,
in. Let's
have
watch
you
it,
seen Secret Lives of Mormon Wives?
I tried to watch that one and I couldn't. I felt like they still were kind of embracing the lifestyle way too much. Like I like the Salt Lake City because they're some of them are deconstructing their faith, and that's the part that I like. But the ketamine was very interesting. And the wife swapping, I wasn't really expecting that, but that's a different conversation. That is a totally different conversation. But The Surviving Mormonism one with Heather Gay, I was really impressed because here's this like real housewife who is an ex-Mormon who is excommunicated while her husband was not. And women have that story all the time. Queer people have that story all the time when they and that's basically what she does in this three-part series. She talks about if you come out and you speak against the church, 9 times out of 10, if you're a marginalized member of the church, like a woman or somebody who might be LGBTQ, well, you're out, pal. Because and the thing that
Mhm.
struck me the most was the reason why. Because the men hold the priesthood, and because
Yep.
they're your only connection to the celestial kingdom. So
I
if
mean,
you excommunicate the guy, then you don't get to go to special heaven, right?
right. Exactly. And it wasn't until, I mean, very recently that they even started allowing black people to join the church. So they've got some roots of a lot of stuff, and I think it is a little culty, hinting why I'm no
Do
longer there. But
do you see more people your age? Like, are you in communication with kids that you grew up with who are more and more rejecting this? Because anecdotally, that's what it feels
absolutely,
like. Yeah.
absolutely. I know so many people I went to, especially like middle school with, that also grew up Mormon that have completely left the church as well.
Yeah, like once you start seeing all the things, it's hard to put the toothpaste back in the bottle, right? Or back
Exactly.
in the tube after it's come out. So, well, this has been really great. And seeing the chat, it does seem, yeah, that's right. Mormons in Mesa got Russell Pierce recalled in 2011. That was mostly Mormons. And again, going back to what you said, Jacob, about the fact that they do often put their money where their mouth is. They are very involved, and they
Yeah.
talk the talk and walk the walk. But
Mhm.
it's still a divide, I would say. All right, I want to
Yeah.
let's see. Let's
And
make
I know
sure.
Diane had a thing about a intern at Hamilton High. I put my email in the chat so that, or Secular AZ put an email in the chat that you can email me more information about that, and I would like to get them going. So,
And I will also reach out to my contacts in Scottsdale. And then I used to teach in Phoenix Union, but I feel like Phoenix Union would be very easy to find to find somebody. Because back in the day, gosh, neighborhood for leader something center for neighborhood leadership, it was a group that was and it was right around that time, like 2012, 13, that they established, and it was all about, and like they would have their meetings at Terry Goddard's office down in like
oh
central
wow.
Phoenix. Yeah, it was really cool. But it was Center for Neighborhood Leadership, and like Stanford Prescott way back in the day. So this really reminds me of that, and I think it's fantastic. And I've known you now for a hot second, and everything that I've seen you do is just so impressive to me. And so I know that I wish you all the luck. But before we close, I always ask everybody the same question because if you have eyes and ears, the world isn't great right now. But
Right.
you're, a very young man, and I'm 50 something, so I've given up hope. No, I'm just kidding. But I would love to know these days, and doing the work that you do, and living in the world that we live in, what gives you hope, Jacob George?
What gives me hope? Well, I mean, obviously, I'm young. I have to have hope, right? I'm gonna be on this earth for probably who knows how long, if we make it. But I would say what gives me hope is more kind of just as a school board member when I get to see the little kids and the children. I would say that's what gives me the hope, knowing that we're gonna continue to fight for a better future and for those small children that really don't even know what's going on and they're so fragile and um, you know that's what gives me hope. And what gives me hope is when I see community members come out and support the whole for food drives and supporting people in their neighborhoods. That stuff gives me hope, and I'm really trying to find the best in people when all we hear is the worst. So I would say that's what gives me hope.
Oh, that is perfect. So that you heard it here, everybody. Take that into your weekend. We all should have hope because there are amazing activists and advocates out there like Jacob George doing all the heavy lifting. So please lift your wallets heavily and support the work that Jacob does and support the work that we do. And Diane says 30,000 high school students walking out against ICE gives me hope in North Carolina. So hell yeah. Thank you for that, Diane. Thank you, Jacob, for all the work that you do. And thanks for everybody for joining us today. I appreciate y'all.
Of course. Thank you.
All right. Take care, everybody. See you later.